You know that sinking feeling when you turn the water back on after a repair and you hear dripping inside the wall? Chances are one of the mistakes we're covering today caused it. Plastic pipes like PVC, CPVC, and PEX, rhymes with flex, are fantastic materials. But after 3 decades of fixing plumbing disasters, I can tell you they're incredibly unforgiving when you skip steps or cut corners. Today, I'm walking you through 15 fatal mistakes that will make your plastic pipe joints fail. And stick around for number 11 because it's a silent killer most homeowners never see coming. Plus, I've got a bonus tip at the end that could save you from a catastrophic leak. The first mistake that causes more failed joints than almost anything else is not deburring cut pipe ends. When you cut through PVC, CPVC, or ABS pipe, whether you're using a saw or a ratcheting cutter, you're left with tiny ridges and burrs on the inside and outside edges. Most folks just blow off the dust and move on. Big mistake. Those little burrs do two things that will ruin your day. First, they scrape channels through your cement as you push the fitting on, creating pathways for water to seep through. Second, they create turbulence inside the pipe that accelerates wear and can eventually cause pinhole leaks. The fix takes about 15 seconds. Use a deburring tool, a half-round file, or even a utility knife to chamfer the outside edge and smooth the inside. Run your finger around it. If you feel any roughness at all, keep working until that edge is glass smooth. The second mistake I see constantly is using the wrong cement for the pipe type. This one catches people all the time because the cans look similar on the shelf. Here's what you need to understand. PVC cement, CPVC cement, and ABS cement are not interchangeable. They're chemically formulated to soften and fuse with one specific type of plastic. Use PVC cement on CPVC, and you'll get what looks like a solid joint, but it won't achieve a true chemical weld. 6 months later, maybe 2 years later, that joint is going to fail under pressure. A BS is even trickier because it uses a different solvent entirely. The only exception is an all-purpose cement that's clearly labeled for multiple pipe types. But even then, check that your specific materials are listed on the can. Read the label every single time. Match the cement to the pipe, and you'll never have this problem. The third critical mistake is skipping the primer on PVC and CPVC. I get it. Primer is messy, it's purple, it gets everywhere, and it feels like an unnecessary extra step. But here's the reality. In most jurisdictions across the country, using primer isn't optional. It's code, and there's a good reason for that. Primer does two essential things that cement alone cannot do. First, it cleans the surface of any dirt, oil, or oxidation that would prevent a good bond. Second, and more importantly, it softens the outer layer of the plastic so the cement can actually penetrate and create a true chemical weld. Without primer, you're just gluing the surface. With primer, you're fusing the molecules together. The purple color exists specifically so inspectors can verify it was used. Some areas allow clear primer, but check your local codes first. Spend the extra 30 seconds and $2. Your joints will be bulletproof. Now, if you're finding this video helpful so far, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps this video reach more homeowners like yourself who would also find this information helpful. All right, let's continue. The fourth mistake on our list is dry fitting without marking alignment. Dry fitting is smart. You absolutely should test fit your joints before committing with cement. The problem comes when you dry fit, feel confident, everything lines up, pull it apart, apply your cement, and then shove it back together without any reference marks. Here's what happens. Cement is slippery, and you have maybe 5 to 15 seconds of working time before it starts to set. In that rushed moment, it's incredibly easy to push the fitting in, slightly rotate it from where you tested it. Suddenly, your 90-degree elbow is pointing at 83 degrees, and your pipe run is headed toward the wrong joist bay. The solution is dead simple. Once your dry fit looks perfect, take a permanent marker or a grease pencil and draw a line across the joint, from pipe onto fitting. When you assemble for real, just line up those marks. Perfect alignment every single time, no guesswork involved. The fifth mistake that leads to disaster is not allowing proper cure time before pressure testing. I've watched homeowners glue up beautiful pipe runs, wait maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then turn on the main valve to check for leaks. What happens next isn't pretty. The joints blow apart, water sprays everywhere, and suddenly the simple repair becomes an emergency. Here's why this happens. Solvent cement doesn't just dry, it cures. During that curing process, the solvents evaporate and the plastic molecules actually bond together at a molecular level. Rush it, and you have a weak joint that can't handle pressure. The cure time varies based on pipe diameter, temperature, and humidity. For a typical half-inch to 1-inch joint at room temperature, you need a minimum of 30 minutes before handling and at least 2 hours before pressure testing. In cold weather or with larger diameter pipes, that extends to 24 hours. Read the instructions on your cement can. They'll give you specific cure times. Patience here is not optional. It's the difference between a joint that lasts 30 years and one that fails in 30 minutes. The sixth mistake is one I see all the time with threaded connections: over-tightening plastic fittings and compression nuts. People who grew up working with metal pipes have it drilled into their heads that tighter means better, and when something leaks, you just crank down harder. With plastic, that approach will crack your fittings and guarantee a failure. Plastic threads don't have the same tolerance for torque that brass or steel do. When you over-tighten a PVC or nylon-threaded fitting, you create stress fractures that may not leak immediately, but will definitely fail down the road. The same goes for compression fittings on supply lines. Tighten until snug, then maybe a quarter turn more at most. If it leaks, tightening further won't help. Instead, disassemble. Check for debris or damage. Apply fresh thread tape if it's a threaded connection, and reassemble carefully. Use hand pressure with maybe a quarter turn of a wrench. Let the tape or the compression ring do the sealing work, not brute force. The seventh mistake is a code violation that I still encounter in homes all the time: using PVC in hot water lines. Standard PVC pipe is rated for temperatures up to around 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Your water heater is typically set between 120 and 140 degrees, which sounds fine until you consider that water heaters can surge hotter during heavy use, and that constant exposure to those temperatures degrades PVC over time. Within a few years, the pipe becomes brittle and weak. I've seen PVC hot water lines that turned almost yellow and shattered when touched. For hot water, you need CPVC, which handles up to 200 degrees, or better yet, PEX, which is rated even higher and flexes with thermal expansion. If you discover PVC on your hot water lines, plan to replace it before it fails catastrophically. This isn't about being overly cautious. It's about basic material science and code compliance. The 8th mistake is improper support and hanger spacing. Plastic pipe isn't rigid like copper or steel. It needs support at regular intervals, or gravity and water weight will cause it to sag over time. That sagging creates low spots where sediment collects and where stress concentrates at the joints. Eventually, you get either a blockage or a separated joint, sometimes both. Building codes specify maximum hanger spacing for good reason. For most horizontal PVC and CPVC runs, you need support every 32 to 48 inches depending on pipe diameter. Vertical runs need support at least every 4 feet. PEX requires support every 32 inches for horizontal runs. Don't just eyeball it. Measure your spacing and use proper plastic hangers, not metal ones that can cut into the pipe. Also, make sure your pipes can move slightly within the hangers to accommodate expansion. Rigid clamping in one spot while the rest of the pipe wants to expand creates enormous stress on your joints. The 9th mistake applies specifically to PEX tubing, kinking the pipe. PEX is wonderfully flexible compared to rigid plastic pipes, which makes it easier to run through tight spaces and around obstacles. But that flexibility has a limit. Bend PEX too sharply, and it will kink like a garden hose. Once kinked, that section is compromised forever. The pipe wall has been stressed beyond its limits, and even if you manage to round it back out, you've created a weak spot that restricts flow and may eventually fail. The general rule is to never bend PEX tighter than 6 times its outside diameter. For half-inch PEX, that means a minimum bend radius of 3 inches. For 3/4 inch, it's about 4.5 inches. When you need to make tighter turns, use proper bend supports or 90-degree fittings. If you do accidentally kink a section, cut it out completely and splice in fresh tubing with appropriate fittings. Don't take chances with kinked PEX. The 10th mistake involves choosing the wrong PEX connection system for your skill level. PEX is fantastic material, but there are 3 main ways to connect it, and picking the wrong one can lead to frustration and failed joints. The 3 systems are crimp rings, clamp rings, also called cinch clamps, and expansion fittings. Crimp rings require a specific crimping tool and a go-no-go gauge to verify proper compression. Get the crimp slightly off-center or at the wrong pressure, and you have a leak waiting to happen. Clamp rings use a ratcheting tool that's more forgiving because it clicks when you've reached proper tension, making them better for beginners. Expansion fittings require a specialized expansion tool to enlarge the PEX before sliding it over the fitting. And while they create the strongest connection, the tools are expensive and there's a learning curve. My recommendation for most DIYers is to start with the clamp ring system. The tool costs around $50. It's nearly foolproof, and the connections are code approved and reliable. Whatever system you choose, practice on scrap pieces before working on your actual plumbing, and always follow the manufacturer's instructions. Exactly. The 11th mistake is the silent killer I mentioned at the start, exposing plastic pipes to direct sunlight. This one catches people off guard because the damage happens slowly and invisibly. All plastic plumbing pipes, whether PVC, CPVC, ABS, or PEX, are vulnerable to ultraviolet radiation. When exposed to direct sunlight, the UV rays break down the molecular structure of the plastic, causing it to become brittle and weak over time. PEX is particularly sensitive and can degrade in as little as 30 to 60 days of direct sun exposure. The pipe might look fine from the outside, but internally it's losing its flexibility and strength. I've seen outdoor PEX lines that crumbled like dry pasta when handled. Even pipes near windows or in unconditioned spaces with skylights can be at risk. If you must run plastic pipes in areas with sun exposure, either use UV-rated pipes specifically designed for outdoor use, or cover the pipes with insulation or UV protective wrap. For temporary exposure during construction, keep pipes covered until they're enclosed in walls. The 12th mistake is mixing incompatible plastic types without proper transition fittings. Just because two pipes are both plastic doesn't mean you can glue them together directly. PVC, CPVC, and ABS all have different chemical compositions, and the solvents that bond one type will not properly bond another. You cannot glue ABS directly to PVC. The joint might hold initially, but it will fail over time because no true chemical weld occurred. The same goes for connecting PVC to CPVC. For ABS to PVC transitions, most codes require a mechanical coupling, often called a no-hub coupling or a mission coupling, that uses rubber gaskets and stainless steel clamps. Some jurisdictions allow special transition cements, but you need to verify this with your local inspector. For CPVC to PVC transitions, use a threaded adapter on each side with appropriate thread tape. Never assume you can just glue different plastics together. Check compatibility, use the right transition fittings, and keep your work code compliant. The 13th mistake seems basic, but causes countless failed joints. Cutting pipes at an angle instead of square. When you cut a pipe at an angle, several bad things happen at once. The pipe won't seat fully into the fitting on one side, leaving a gap where the cement coverage is thin or non-existent. The angled edge can scrape cement off as it enters the fitting, creating channels for leaks. And the uneven surface means your deburring will be inconsistent, compounding the problems we discussed earlier. A square cut is essential for a proper joint. For best results, use a miter box with a fine-tooth saw or use a ratcheting pipe cutter designed for plastic. If you're using a handsaw, mark a line all the way around the pipe with tape or a marker to guide your cut. After cutting, hold the pipe up and eyeball the end. If it's not perfectly perpendicular, take a few strokes with a file to square it up before deburring. This extra minute of care prevents leaks that could cost hundreds in repairs. The 14th mistake is applying too much or too little cement. Both extremes cause problems, and finding the right amount takes a bit of practice. Too little cement means incomplete coverage, especially inside the fitting socket where you can't see. Water finds those dry spots and seeps through. Too much cement creates its own issues. Excess cement gets pushed ahead of the pipe as you insert it, forming a ridge of gooey material inside the pipe that restricts flow. Worse, puddles of excess cement can chemically attack the pipe wall, weakening it and creating failure points. The correct technique is to apply a medium, even coat to both the pipe end and the inside of the fitting socket. The pipe should get slightly more cement than the fitting. When you push them together with a quarter turn and hold for 15 seconds, you should see a small bead of cement form around the joint. If you see large drips or no bead at all, adjust your application on the next joint. Practice on scrap pieces until you develop a feel for the right amount. The 15th and final mistake on our list is ignoring expansion and contraction in long runs. Plastic pipes expand and contract significantly with temperature changes, far more than copper or steel. PVC can expand nearly half an inch over a 10-foot run when going from cold to hot water temperatures. CPVC and PEX expand even more. If you rigidly secure a long run of plastic pipe at both ends without accounting for this movement, something has to give. Usually it's your joints, which experience enormous stress as the pipe tries to lengthen or shorten against those fixed points. Over time, that stress causes cracks, separated joints, and leaks that seem to come from nowhere. The solution is to build in expansion loops or offsets on runs longer than 10 feet, or use specialized expansion couplings designed for this purpose. At minimum, allow your hangers to permit slight linear movement rather than clamping the pipe rigidly in place. On hot water lines especially, plan for expansion from day one. A little forethought during installation prevents mysterious leaks appearing years down the road. And now for the bonus tip that professional plumbers swear by. Before you cement any joint on a critical repair or a new installation, do a full dry assembly of your entire pipe run, every fitting, every turn, every connection, all at once. Don't just test individual joints. Put the whole thing together dry. This reveals problems you'd never catch otherwise. Maybe your measurements are off by a quarter inch and the run won't reach. Maybe two fittings interfere with each other when assembled. Maybe the whole assembly twists slightly under its own weight. Professionals call this a dry run for a reason. Once you've confirmed everything fits perfectly, mark every joint with alignment marks, as we discussed earlier. Then, and only then, disassemble and start cementing from one end to the other, working methodically. This approach takes maybe 15 extra minutes on a typical job, but it eliminates the panic of discovering a problem when you've got wet cement on half your fittings and the clock ticking on your cure time. Plan twice, cement once. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire video. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more DIY plumbing tips, and check out our other videos.